All right, so we're going to go. I'm going to do aquatic biomes. You guys will do terrestrial. And your next test is this. Biomes, aquatic and terrestrial. So there are two types of aquatic biomes. That should, your title of your notes should say aquatic biomes, and then you should say there are two types. Anybody know what the two types of aquatic biomes are? Fresh and salt. Good job. So my first type of biome is marine, which is oceans or salt water. My second type of biome is fresh. So the factor that determines one aquatic biome from another is what? The factor that determines life from existing in a marine versus life existing in a fresh is what? Wow. Salt. Good job. Now, if I go into an a marine biome, or if I go into a freshwater biome, what factor would determine life within that biome? Perfect. Sunlight and depth. So if I'm going to look at organisms, they're going to vary from marine to fresh. But if I'm in the marine biome, variation of species is going to be determined by light. And the focus of these notes is going to be marine, and then we're going to move on to fresh, more about fresh in the next unit. Enter the marine biome. Put marine biome zones. Think of the zones this way. If I go to the ocean and I swim into the ocean or walk into the ocean and swim out, those are the first three zones I'm going to talk about. And the first zone of the marine biome that's closest to the shore is called the intertidal zone. So you can put the intertidal zone as the first zone, or if you want to call them the horizontal zones, or if you want to call it the zone nearest to the shore, all of those things are good. What are you going to see in this zone or experience? Seaweed. Why? Why do you see so much seaweed? There's sun. That's a good one. Okay. For sure, this is a fully lit zone. Sunlight penetrates this entire zone because it's shallow and it's closest to the shore. Why else do you see seaweed in the shore? Waves and tides. Yes. So you're going to see tides. You're going to see waves. And you're going to see light penetrate the whole zone. And you're going to see organisms that are called drifters. And they categorize those as plankton. So plankton is AKA drifters, according to marine terms. They don't really swim. They just kind of float around. Shells do this, right? Or like shelled organisms, because they have to be able to survive these types of conditions. What I'm looking for in your biomes, I want to see organisms and visuals of what they go through. So if you're going to show me a seashell has to be able to go through tides, then you show me that visual, okay? Maybe you're swimming through there. I don't know. I keep swimming. I'm going a little bit deeper out, still light. The second zone is called the neritic zone. It's the second zone because it's a little bit further out, but it's mainly its own zone because you will always see this in the neritic zone, which is what? What do you see in this picture? Coral. The neritic zone is considered the rainforest of the sea, or it's where coral reefs are. Who has a rainforest biome? Why do you think the coral reef is called the rainforest of the sea? You should know this if you're a rainforest. Good. It is the most diverse zone of the marine biome. And I'm going to talk about that again because I talk about diversity. Because diversity is the most important component for life, because without it you can't evolve. And with diversity you should have a lot of producers, and in a neritic zone there's a lot of producers. Why? Because there's enough light and perfect ideal conditions for plants to survive and produce. So sometimes in an AP exam, they won't reference intertidal and they won't reference neritic. They'll just call it the coastal zone, but they can ask you questions of characteristics from those two zones. So they could talk about tides here, they could talk about coral reefs here, they could talk about drifters. Yes? And diversity. All of those things, and light. All those questions can come up. So now I'm going to keep swimming. Who's heard this song? Let's name the zones, the zones, the zones. Yes, you have. What? I'll share it with you in a minute. But we're going to the oceanic zone. So I'm swimming, and all of a sudden, the floor of the ocean drops, and that drop is called the continental shelf. And now we have depth zones, or what I call vertical zones. There's no vertical zones in the intertidal zone because when you enter the ocean, you're standing, right? When you swim out, it might get a little deep, like 10 feet, 20 feet, but we're talking about a drop. No more floor that you could step on. You can't even swim down to touch it, okay? Now, some of the drop, and it'll make more sense, but this zone is called the open sea or the oceanic zone. It has two names. These are the zones we're going to name going down. And then you didn't know the song, but I'll tell you the song in a minute. So this is what the open sea looks like, right? Where you go fishing. Yeah. And these are them. So you could take a picture of this, put it in your notes, and then maybe put in a line when I give you the information for epipelagic, mesopelagic, bathyal, abyssal. We're going to talk about each of those zones, and we're going to reference light. You notice in this picture, you see light changing, right? Those light zones have names. So we have to know the name of the zone and the light reference. You do not have to know the meters. So even if I give you a graphic with meters, you don't have to know the meters. Name of the zone and light. So these are the zones of the open sea. The first one is epipelagic. So I swam through the intertidal, I swam through the neritic, and I hit the drop, and now I'm in the epipelagic zone. Has anybody ever been to a coral reef? Swimming, right? And do you see the drop? Have you ever seen the drop? I'm going to show you the drop today anyway, if you haven't. All right, so we're in the drop. What do you see in terms of light here? A lot. It's a fully lit zone. The word that describes fully lit is euphotic. Do you see a lot of life here? No. What do you see? What? Big fish. Yes. So for epi, meso, bathyal, abyssal, there's light, zone, names, and you have to know. Now, if I asked you, what kind of light, or if I have to name intertidal and neritic, they would also be euphotic. Euphotic will be every part of the ocean that receives light. But they've referenced them in the oceanic zones or open sea zones because the light differs as you go down. So you'll see sporadic large mammals here. Can they be in the intertidal zone? Yes, we've seen them, right? But this is where they commonly are found. Now we're going to swim down. And we're in the mesopelagic zone. What do you see in terms of light? Not as much, right? That's dysphotic, and it's like in and out light. So if you're at the top of the mesopelagic, it's going to be lit. As you swim down, it starts to twinkle. And you have variations of light. Twinkling or twilight, they call it. Dysphotic. You don't really see much here. Because this is what they call like the hiding zone for animals. They don't really live here because animals like to live where there's productivity, and there's limited productivity as you go down because light is lost. Yes. So we're going to continue to swim down, and we're in the bathyal. By the way, all of them end in pelagic. So if you learn every epipelagic, mesopelagic, bathyal, abyssal, I don't know what the acronym was. I know somebody, EMBA. That's what people say. EMBA. They all end in pelagic. And I'm not going to try to trick you and put epipelagic and another E word. You have to just know it's epipelagic. Mesopelagic, bathyal, abyssal. Maybe when you hear the song, it'll help you remember. What does bathypelagic look like? No, it's not no light yet. It's rarely lit. So you're going to say the top of the bathypelagic zone is similar to the twilight zone, and as you go down, it's getting really dark. So there's rarely light. Where you can say there's absolutely no light, oh, and there's limited life here again. So my mesopelagic and bathypelagic are almost like in-between zones, because if you don't have light, you don't have life. Now, we're getting to where there's no light. So how could there be life there? It's the question. See who remembers. What happens in the abyssal zone? A for abyssal, A for light-wise first. A for, you think my light, what's my light like here? Dark. So what do we call no light that starts with an A? No. We've got euphotic, we've got dysphotic, so this would be aphotic. Correct. So you have no light, means there's no what? No light means no what? Supposedly, no life. Because what doesn't happen without light? Photosynthesis. And without photosynthesis, you don't have the start of the food chain, so there shouldn't be life. But what did we learn happens down here? Chemosynthesis happens here. We have hydrothermal vents. The word chemosynthesis should have popped up there, so make sure to write it. We have hydrothermal vents, and we have chemosynthesis. And this is where you repeat your reaction. What do you need for chemosynthesis to occur? Heat from the hydrothermal vents. What else? Carbon dioxide, which comes out of the hydrothermal vents. And what's the third thing? Some sulfur compound makes what are you trying to make always in glucose and some sulfur compound, which is hydrogen sulfide. Okay? Doesn't matter. I'm never going to ask you what the sulfur compound is. That's chemosynthesis. And that's what my hydrothermal vents look like. And so you know, in this, you're going to have like organisms with big eyes and organisms that light up because there's no light. So that's their survival technique. So this is another picture for you. Euphotic, epipelagic, mesopelagic, dysphotic, and bathyal. And then you got aphotic for abyssal. And then the hadal zone is really not one of the zones of the open sea. It's every once in a while you'll see this. So what is that? What is this right here? This, I gotta exit my mouth so you could see it. Good. The hadal zone is where my trenches are. So next to the word hadal zone, you should see the word trench. That's it.